There's a story doing the rounds in the beer world at the moment that feels bigger than it first appears. The campaign for real ale, CAMRA, has cancelled both the Great British Beer Festival and the National Winter Beer Festival for 2026. Now that's not brand new news, but it is big news. These aren't fringe events. They are CAMRA's flagship showcases, and they are woven into the story of modern British beer. And when something that established quietly disappears, it usually signals that something deeper is going on. So CAMRA, what does it still do brilliantly? Where is it out of step? Is an organisation founded to protect pubs and pints struggling to connect with the people actually drinking beer today? This is not a hit piece, it's a pub conversation. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm James, and this is Wando James. Pubs, pints, places, and the stuff that happens around a pint from someone who actually co-owns a pub. Here, the Big Six in Halifax. If that sounds like your kind of thing, you are in the right place. CAMRA says the decision to cancel the 2026 festivals comes down to finances. And when you look at the detail, it's hard to argue with the maths. Internally, membership isn't growing and may never return to pre-pandemic levels. Recent national festivals ran at a substantial loss. Operational costs have risen sharply. Venue hire, volunteer accommodation, logistics and stock have all become eye-watering. Externally, large venues are fewer, more expensive and less flexible. Olympia, CAMRA's long-time London home, is undergoing major redevelopment. Alternatives like the NEC were maybe cheaper, but were harder to reach and less appealing to casual drinkers. And the wider pub trade is under brutal pressure from rates, costs and closures. Put simply, the numbers stopped working. CAMRA has responded with a 3-year recovery strategy, cutting back to what it sees as core priorities: pub protection, campaigning and legislative influence. The Good Beer Guide continues, and we're in it. Local festivals continue, but the big national showcases gone, at least for now. Here's where things get uncomfortable. CAMRA has spent decades fighting for real ale, and that fight mattered. It saved pubs, it saved styles, it fundamentally changed British beer culture. But culture doesn't stand still. For many drinkers, especially younger ones, but not only younger ones, CAMRA festivals can feel overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time. Hundreds of beers, very little context, big echoing halls that don't exactly invite you to linger. And speaking personally, and this may be a northern thing, beer straight from the barrel just doesn't do it for me in the same way that a well-kept hand-pulled pint of Cask does. Some venues I've attended haven't felt welcoming or convivial. Some feel old-fashioned, not in a charming way, but in a slightly stuck way. There's often a tick list mentality. Have you tried this? Have you ticked that? Rather than, are you actually enjoying yourself? Meanwhile, modern beer culture has shifted towards smaller tap rooms, local identity and clear storytelling, spaces that feel social, inclusive and alive. It's not that people don't care about cask beer. Around here, people care deeply about it. They care about why it exists, who makes it and how it fits into their lives. And CAMRA hasn't always been great at telling that story in a way that lands with new audiences. There's always been controversy, and perception matters. CAMRA's Women in Beer Awards were widely criticised, not because people suddenly don't support women in brewing, quite the opposite, but because the execution felt careless. The awards exist to highlight women's contribution to beer in an industry where they've historically been underrepresented, overlooked, or talked over. When those awards were perceived to be handled clumsily, it didn't just upset critics, it confused supporters. And that points to a broader issue CAMRA has struggled with at times. Not malice, not bad intent, but poor judgment around optics, messaging, and timing. In a crowded, online, hyper-reactive world, organisations don't get the luxury of explaining themselves slowly anymore. If you want to remain relevant, especially to younger drinkers, you have to understand how decisions will land before you make them, and not after the backlash starts. For an organisation that relies on trust, volunteers and goodwill, moments like that linger longer than they should. And here's the irony. CAMRA is probably more right than wrong on the fundamentals. Pubs are closing at an alarming rate. Beer is under real commercial pressure. Drinking habits are changing. Younger people, broadly speaking, drink less often, have less disposable income. But also, if pubs close, communities lose something vital. Pubs are not just about alcohol. They are about human contact. A quiet natter in a snug like this one can matter enormously, especially for people who live or work alone. Something that's too easily dismissed as sad old men drinking on their own is, in reality, a crucial social safety net. And CAMRA understands that. But while it's right about the problems, it often struggles to speak the language of the people who might actually help solve them. If your movement looks like a homework exercise rather than hospitality, you've got a problem. CAMRA's leadership says this reset is about survival, and they may be right. Going lean, cutting nice-to-haves, focusing on core campaigning. And that surely is sensible. But modernising isn't just about budgets or PDFs instead of magazines at the same subscription rate. It's about tone, experience, and understanding that beer culture today is as much about belonging as it is about bitterness units. CAMRA does not need to abandon its roots, but it may need to stop assuming everyone else still lives in the past. I do want CAMRA to succeed. I want pubs protected. I want cask beer to thrive. But wanting something to survive doesn't mean pretending it doesn't need to change. If CAMRA wants a future, not just a legacy, it has to meet drinkers where they are, not where they were in 1974. Do let me know what you think. Is CAMRA misunderstood or genuinely out of step? Or am I completely missing something? Get involved in the conversation down in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this, a like really helps. If you fancy more content like this, a subscribe would be amazing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.